W.E.B. Du Bois said, "When you have mastered numbers, you will in fact no longer be reading numbers any more than you read words when reading books. You will be reading meaning." So we want to get meaning out of numbers. You're going to have profit and loss statements, and hopefully you'll be able to make a profit. You're going to have analysis of numbers throughout your life, and you want to get to the meaning. But first, those numbers need to be accurate, and Microsoft Excel is what we use to get those numbers. Now, when I grew up, I remember my dad using the old-timey spreadsheet before we had computers, and he would have these big, massive spreadsheets with all these numbers written on them about the production for the farm. And when you had to add a number, you had to add everything up, and then you had to erase to try to get what your financial statements were. And this was cumbersome, and you could have lots and lots of errors, and it could be frustrating, but it was all we had. Then we moved to something called Spreadsheets, and the one that we use is Microsoft Excel. And a spreadsheet software program is software creating electronic documents in which data is arranged in the rows and columns of a grid and can be manipulated and used in calculations. We also make graphs and all that sort of thing, and you can see that the Guam tracking chart that I made for you, my students, I actually made it in Excel just because it was formatting. I wasn't putting numbers, but I was just trying to format it in this case. So we can use Excel for a lot of things. So welcome to Microsoft Excel. You can see that in Excel we have these things called cells. And when I just clicked on this cell is B5. And you can see up and down, B is the column and 5 is the row. I can also see that the name of this is in the name box. And there's several ways that we can move around this spreadsheet. When I press enter, it takes me down. I can also use my arrow keys as I'm using now. Now, if I know where I need to go exactly on the spreadsheet, I can click in the name box, and let's say type Z500. And it's going to take me there. See, I went to Z500. And now let me go back to A1. A1 is at the top. Now, you'll see that when you run out of columns, because we only, the alphabet only goes so far, we'll start going with AA. See, AA5, that takes me. So right after Z, we go to AA, and we keep going, let's say, BA. And see, you can see BA is there as well. So let me go back to A1. You won't use that as much on these smaller spreadsheets, but you will use it some. Now, you can see that right now I have sheet 1. Now I'm going to right click and say rename, and this sheet is going to be lesson 38. Now if I want to make another sheet, I'm just going to click plus right here, and then I can right click, rename, and this will be lesson 39. And when I go to file print, it'll print just this sheet. So that's just some of the basics of moving around. At this point, you should pause the video, make sure you can move around and practice typing in. Now the one mistake I see my students make a lot, see if I click up here, this is the formula bar, and I've just clicked up here. Now see, I'm in edit mode. See, it says edit right there. I can't really do much when I'm in edit mode, and sometimes you'll have problems. It says I'm in edit mode, but when I click somewhere else, it now says I'm in ready mode, and I can do other things. So do watch that, and if you're having trouble, sometimes you're in edit mode and you're not ready to do other things. So do note that and see. Now the other thing is, say I wanted to change this from my name to, say I'm married to Donald Duck. I'm going to say Vicki Duck. And see, I could get it wrong there. I just want to click here, and I'm just going to say UCK. See, I edited it up at the top. If I just type over this, now I'm just typing, I type over it. So if I want to edit a little piece, I'll edit up here in my formula bar, and if I want to just type over it, I just type over it, and that's what I do. The next screen will show you a little bit more about typing these numbers of our keyboard, and you'll see the numlock button. Make sure that numlock is on. If you type and it's moving around, then see, I just moved it around. I went page down and page up. I've kind of got a mess there. That's because I'm not in numlock. Okay, so you'll want to definitely do that. Now I'm using my arrow keys, and I'm looking at the lesson in my book, lesson 38C on page 97, and I'm just going to type 5 and 5 and 5. Now one thing you'll notice is if you go down, you'll be better off. Now when you're typing on your numeric keypad, your index finger on your right hand should be on the 4, and your middle finger should be on the 5, and your ring finger should be on the 6, with your pinky finger on the enter, and I usually keep my thumb on the 0, and then you just press enter. Now I'm actually going to make a mistake here, and I do want you to leave rows, but let's say I made a mistake and I didn't leave the rows, and I want to move some stuff around. So I realize, oops, I've made a mistake. Well, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to highlight these 50s right here. Now I could right click and copy and right click and paste, but I'm actually, when I point my arrow to the very edge of the cell, it turns into, looks like a snowflake, but it's actually called the move arrow. And I'm going to click, and see it says at the bottom, it says drag to move contents, or use Alt key to switch the sheets. I'm going to drag down, boom, and there, I'm moving it. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to click on the edge, I'm going to get my little move arrow, or my snowflake, and I'm going to drag it down and move it. Okay, and remember, you can always undo. There's the undo button at the top. If you make mistakes, you can always undo your drag and drop, and that's called drag and drop. Now when I have all this typed, I'm just going to go to File, Print, and I'm going to be able to print it. You can see a preview here, and you have to print each sheet at a time. There is a way to print the whole spreadsheet, but at this point we're just being very simple with it, and I do want the whole page on 97 typed. Let me know if you have any struggles, and good luck. Numbers count. You want to check and recheck all of your numbers. It's interesting. I've turned up this study that close to 90% of spreadsheet documents contain errors. And we want to make sure that our spreadsheets don't have errors. And I found an interesting quote in this article. Patrick O'Byrne says, chainsaws are also a very good tool, just like spreadsheets. But who would use one without a chain guard? People don't take safeguards to ensure their work is correct. In fact, in many cases, all it would take to catch these errors is a second set of eyes. So for your spreadsheets from me, you will actually have a proofreader, or a person who will check your spreadsheet and say that it is correct. This is very important to do. It's a best practice to always have somebody check your spreadsheet, particularly if you're making important decisions with it. It's so easy to make a mistake. And even though the computer's doing things for us, computers just do what they're told. So it's important, as you use your spreadsheets, to make sure you have someone check behind you and check your work. So let's review what we've learned. We've talked about what a spreadsheet is and how we use electronic spreadsheets that can save us time and add formulas for us. But we're not learning formulas or charts yet, or all the advanced things. We're learning basically how to move around in a spreadsheet, how we name and talk about cells. So if I tell you cell A6, you should be able to find that cell and be able to move to it in the spreadsheet. We've also learned how we edit a cell, both by editing in the formula bar at the top, or also just typing over the cell. We've also talked about how we can move cells around just using the move arrow, that cute little arrow that looks about like this. We've also talked about helpful numeric keypad in the home row for the first few numbers on that numeric keypad, and how we can tell if we've got numlock on or not. And then also why it's important to have a second set of eyes on our work. So now you're ready to go to your lesson. Good luck. You're about to start your first spreadsheet.